Hyun took a deep breath as he stepped off the transport ship. The air on this planet was thicker than Earth's, and it filled his lungs with a strange heaviness. The Galactic Academy of Athletics rose before him, a massive structure of curved metal and glass that seemed to reach for the stars. "First day jitters?" asked the pilot behind him. "Don't worry, everyone feels small their first time at the academy." Hyun nodded, but didn't answer. The pilot didn't understand. It wasn't just first day nerves. Hyun was the first human ever to attend the academy. The first of his species deemed worthy to train alongside the greatest athletes in the galaxy. He grabbed his bag and walked toward the entrance. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved around him. Tall, muscular beings with blue skin, the Terrans, lifted cargo with ease. Swift, slender creatures, the Avendri, darted between buildings at amazing speeds. And graceful, four-armed Korvax, athletes practiced complex movements that looked like a dance. Next to them, Hyun looked plain and weak. Just an ordinary human in a galaxy of extraordinary beings. A voice called out from a speaker. "Earth Representative Hyun, please report to the director's office. Level 5, room 508. Eyes turned to stare at him. Some showed curiosity. Others showed doubt. A group of Terran athletes actually laughed as he passed by. "Is that the human?" one asked loudly. He looked so fragile. Hyun kept his eyes forward and his back straight. He had heard worse during the selection process on Earth. The galaxy had watched when humans joined the Galactic Union 50 years ago. They saw humans as the new kids, small, weak, and far behind in technology. But Hyun was here to change that. View, one step at a time. Director Doyen's office was large and filled with trophies. The director himself was a Terran, tall, blue-skinned, and built like a mountain. He stood near a window looking down at a training field where athletes practiced. "Ah, the human arrives," he said without turning. "Come in, Hyun." Hyun entered and stood straight, trying to look confident. "Thank you for accepting my application, Director." Doyen turned and studied Hyun with 4 golden eyes. "To be honest, it wasn't my choice. The Galactic Council insisted we take at least one human this year. Politics." He sighed. "But your test scores were acceptable." He walked to his desk and touched a screen. A hologram appeared. Hyun's application file. "You've listed the Galactic Marathon as your event of choice," Doyen said. His tone made it clear he thought this was a joke. "Yes, sir. On Earth, humans are known for endurance running." Doyen laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. "Young man, the Galactic Marathon is not like your Earth races. It's 80 kilometers through varying terrains and climates. The current champion, Ji Woo, is an Avendri. Their bodies are literally designed for speed and endurance. You wouldn't last half the race." Hyun had prepared for this reaction. "With respect, sir, I believe humans have qualities that aren't obvious at first glance." "Such as?" Doyen raised an eyebrow. "Determination, adaptation, and our own kind of endurance." Doyen studied him for a long moment. "Well, it's your choice if you want to embarrass yourself, but I strongly suggest you consider the sprints or perhaps swimming. Something more realistic for your species." Hyun shook his head. "I came to run the marathon, sir." The director sighed. "Very well, your orientation begins tomorrow at dawn. Room assignment is being sent to your device. I hope you prove more reasonable after a few weeks of training." The student dining hall buzzed with activity. Hundreds of alien athletes ate strange foods and talked in dozens of languages. Hyun stood with his tray looking for an empty seat. "Hey, Earth Boy," a voice called out. "Over here." A female Korvax waved all 4 of her arms at him. Hyun walked over and sat down at her table where another Korvax sat as well. "I'm Mina," she said, her large purple eyes blinking rapidly. "This is my brother Taehyun. We heard a human joined this year." "Yun," he said, offering a smile. "Thanks for the seat." Taehyun leaned forward. "Is it true humans have only 2 lungs? How do you run with only 2? Hyun nodded. "Just 2, but they work well enough." "Fascinating," Mina said. "What event are you here for?" "The marathon." Both Korvacs stopped eating and looked at each other. The marathon? Taehyun repeated slowly. The actual galactic marathon? Hyun took a bite of his food, trying to seem casual. Yes. Mina's expression changed to one of concern. But that's Jiwoo's event. He's won it 3 years straight. No one even comes close to him. He's an Avendry, Taehyun added. They can run for days without stopping. So I've heard, Hyun said. Before they could respond, a shadow fell over the table. Hyun looked up to see a tall, slender being with silvery skin, an Avendry. The newcomer had sharp features and eyes that shifted color like oil on water. Well, the Avendry said. You must be the human they're talking about. The dining hall grew quieter. Many turned to watch. I'm Hyun, he said, standing and offering his hand. The Avendry ignored the hand. I'm Jiwoo, 3-time champion of the Galactic Marathon. He looked Hyun up and down. They say you think you can run the marathon. Is this true or just a rumor? Hyun lowered his hand but held Jiwoo's gaze. It's true. Jiwoo smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Tell me, human, what's the longest you've ever run? I completed the Earth Ultramarathon last year, 100 kilometers. Impressive. For Earth, Jiwoo said. But our marathon isn't just about distance, it's about terrain, gravity changes, atmospheric shifts. He leaned closer. The best athletes from 15 planets have tried and failed to beat me. What makes you think you can? The dining hall was completely silent now. Everyone watched and waited for Hyun's answer. I don't think I can beat you, Hyun said calmly. Not yet, but I didn't come here to beat anyone. I came to run, to learn, and to show what humans can do. Jiwoo laughed and many others joined in. What humans can do? We already know what humans can do. Talk big and build clumsy ships. He turned to address the room. Look, everyone. Our new classmate thinks he's going to run with the real athletes. The laughter grew louder. Hyun stood still, face warm with embarrassment but expression neutral. He had expected this. It didn't make it easier, but he had expected it. I guess we'll see, he said simply. Jiwoo's smile vanished. Yes, we will. We certainly will. He walked away, leaving Hyun standing alone in a room full of staring aliens. When he sat back down, Mina looked at him with something like pity. You shouldn't have challenged him like that. I didn't challenge him, Hyun said. I just didn't back down. Later that night, as Hyun unpacked in his small room, there was a knock at his door. He opened it to find an older alien he didn't recognize. A short, elderly Avendry with deep blue skin and wise eyes. Good evening, the alien said. I am Professor Sunho. I teach xenobiology here at the academy. Nice to meet you, Hyun said, surprised. Sunho smiled. May I come in? I believe we have something important to discuss about your marathon plans. Hyun stepped aside. What about my plans? The professor entered and closed the door behind him. Young man, I've studied the physiology of over 50 intelligent species, and I think everyone here is underestimating what humans were built to do. For the first time since arriving, Hyun felt a spark of hope. I'm listening, he said. The first week of training nearly broke Hyun's spirit. Each morning, all new students gathered at the main training field before sunrise. The gravity on this planet was 1.2 times that of Earth, making every step harder, every jump lower, every landing heavier. Faster, Earth boy, shouted the training master, a 6-limbed being named Kiju. My grandmother moves faster, and she's been dead for 50 years. Hyun pushed harder, his legs burning as he tried to keep pace with the others. The Avendry students moved like silver blurs around the track. The muscular Terrans bounded forward, in powerful strides. Even the 4-armed Korvacs, not known for speed, stayed ahead of him. He finished last. Again. Not impressive, Kiju said, shaking his head. Not impressive at all. As the days passed, the pattern continued. Standard exercises that other species found easy left Hyun exhausted. Swimming in the dense liquid of the aquatic training pool nearly drowned him. Strength tests made him look like a child compared to the others. And always, there was Jiwoo, watching with a smirk. Ready to switch to a human-sized event? Jiwoo asked one day as Hyun struggled to catch his breath. Perhaps walking? You seem good at that? Laughter followed Hyun wherever he went. On the 7th night, there was another knock at his door. Professor. Sunho stood there, a small device in his hand. May I come in? He asked. I've been monitoring your progress. You mean my lack of progress, Hyun said, stepping aside to let the professor enter. Sunho placed the device on Hyun's desk. It projected a hologram of Hyun running, alongside holograms of other species. You're training wrong, Sunho said simply. What? The Academy training program was designed for the average galactic athlete, but humans aren't average, you're unique. He pointed to the hologram. Look at how an Avendri runs. Their legs move differently. Their lungs process air differently. You can't train like them and expect to succeed. Hyun sat on his bed feeling a mix of frustration and hope. So what do I do? Train like a human, Sunho said with a smile. And lucky for you, I've spent years studying human physiology. I believe you have potential none of these others understand. For the next hour, Sunho explained his theory. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on Earth. While they weren't the fastest or strongest, they had remarkable endurance. They could regulate body temperature through sweating, something many species couldn't do. And most importantly, humans had mental toughness that let them push through pain. Meet me at the East training field tomorrow, 2 hours before the official training, Sunho said as he left. We'll create a human training plan. The new training routine was brutal but different. Hyun ran longer distances at a steady pace, not the sprints the academy favored. He trained in hot rooms to improve his heat regulation. He practiced special breathing techniques Sunho developed. Your advantage isn't in the first 10 kilometers, Sunho explained. It's in the last 10, when everyone else is exhausted. Weeks passed. Hyun still finished last in official training, but the gap was getting smaller. His private sessions with Sunho showed real progress. One morning, while running on the forest track before dawn, Hyun noticed someone watching from the trees. It was Mina, the Korvax student who had been kind to him on his first day. You're up early, she said, stepping onto the path. Extra training, Hyun replied, slowing to a stop. I've noticed. Everyone has. She tilted her head. You wake up before anyone else. You train after everyone is finished. You study race videos during meals. She paused. Why push so hard for something everyone says you can't do? Hyun wiped sweat from his forehead. Because they're wrong about humans. We may not look impressive, but there's more to us than what you see. Mina was quiet for a moment. Did you know Korvax weren't always accepted in the academy? Hyun shook his head. 50 years ago, they said our forearms made us cheaters in throwing events, that we weren't built for real athletics. She smiled slightly. Then one Korvax proved them wrong. Now we compete in everything. What changed their minds? Hyun asked. Someone who refused to quit. She gestured to the path ahead. Mind if I join you? I'm curious about this human training method. From that day on, Mina sometimes trained with him. Occasionally, Taehyun joined them too. They couldn't keep up with Hyun's endurance routines, but they offered tips about the academy's training equipment and future race conditions. Not everyone was supportive. Jiwoo, seeing Hyun's gradual improvement, complained to Director Doyun. The next day, Hyun found himself blocked from using the climate-controlled training room. Safety concerns, the attendant said. Director's orders. When Hyun asked for an explanation, he was summoned to Doyun's office. The climate chamber can simulate extreme conditions, Doyun explained. Conditions that could be dangerous for less adapted species. You mean humans, Hyun said flatly. Doyun nodded. Jiwoo raised valid concerns. If you were injured using equipment not designed for humans, it would reflect poorly on the academy. The equipment works fine for me, Hyun argued. Professor Sunho has been monitoring my progress. Ah yes, Sunho. Doyun frowned. He's a brilliant xenobiologist but not a training master. This is for your own good, Hyun. That night, as Hyun ran laps on the outdoor track under the light of 3 moons, he felt a moment of doubt. Without access to the climate chamber, how could he prepare for the changing conditions of the real marathon? A figure stepped onto the track ahead. The academy doctor, Jin-hee. She was a short, stocky species Hyun hadn't learned the name of yet. "Professor Sunho sent me," she said, holding a small case. "He said you might need these." Inside the case were medical patches designed to help with temperature regulation. "I've been reviewing your medical data," Jin-hee said. "Your species' ability to sweat is fascinating. These patches will help enhance that process when you need it and slow it when you don't." Hyun looked at her in surprise. "You're helping me? I'm a doctor. My job is to help all students perform at their best." She handed him the case. "Besides, it's interesting to see what humans can do. Most of us have only read about your kind in reports." As she walked away, she called over her shoulder, "The North Ridge path simulates 4 different climate zones if you follow it all the way up. No one uses it because it's too difficult. No official restrictions there. Yet." The qualifying trials were announced 1 month later. All students who wished to compete in official events needed to complete a standard course within a set time. For the marathon, the qualifying time was 3 hours for a 30-kilometer course. The night before the qualifier, Hyun barely slept. His mind raced with doubts. Despite all his training, he was still not as fast as the others. But he remembered what Sunho had told him. Your race begins when theirs ends, in the final kilometers, when endurance matters most. The next morning, the entire academy gathered to watch the qualifiers. When Hyun stepped up to the marathon qualifying line, whispers spread through the crowd. Some laughed, some looked concerned. Jiwoo stood with his arms crossed, a confident smile on his face. "Last chance to back out," he said to Hyun. "Save yourself the embarrassment." Hyun took a deep breath and moved into starting position. "Not a chance," he replied. The qualifying course stretched ahead of Hyun like a challenge made real. 30 kilometers of varied terrain, forest paths, rocky hills, a small desert section, and finally a stretch along a lake. He had studied the course map for weeks, planning his strategy. The starting signal flashed and 40 students shot forward. The Avendri, including Jiwoo, immediately took the lead, their slender bodies seeming to glide over the ground. The powerful Terrans followed, their heavy footfalls shaking the earth. Hyun settled into a steady pace, just as Professor Sunho had advised. "Your race isn't against them," Sunho had said during their final training session. "It's against the clock. Forget everyone else, easier said than done." As the pack pulled ahead, leaving Hyun behind, doubts crept in. Was all his training for nothing? Could humans really compete at this level? 5 kilometers in, he was already nearly last. Only a few slower species remained behind him. He could hear laughter from spectators watching through floating camera drones. Look at the human still trying. He'll never make the cutoff time. Hyun blocked out the voices and focused on his breathing, his pace, his form. The forest section was cool and shaded. Perfect conditions for a human. He maintained his steady rhythm. 10 kilometers passed, 15, 20. The desert section was hard, hot and dry, with loose sand that made each step difficult. But Hyun had trained for this, using the North Ridge path Jin-hee had told him about. As he entered the final stretch along the lake, something strange began to happen. He started passing people. First, a Terran who had stopped, hands on knees, breathing heavily. Then 2 Korvax running side by side, their pace now slow and labored. With each kilometer, Hyun caught and passed more students whose fast early pace had depleted their energy. He wasn't getting faster, they were getting slower, just as Sunho had predicted. The final kilometer approached. Hyun's legs burned and his lungs worked hard in the thick air of this alien world, but he kept moving, 1 foot in front of the other. His time wasn't great, but it might be enough. The finish line came into view. Hyun saw Director Doyen standing there with a timekeeper. The director's 4 eyes widened slightly as he spotted Hyun approaching. With a final push, Hyun crossed the line. "Time?" he gasped, bending over to catch his breath. The timekeeper looked at Director Doyen, who nodded. 2 hours, 59 minutes, 12 seconds, the timekeeper announced. Hyun had qualified by less than a minute. Director Doyen looked at Hyun with an expression that mixed surprise and something else. Concern, perhaps. Congratulations, the director said formally. You've qualified for the Galactic Marathon. The next day, news spread through the academy. The human had qualified. Most students still didn't take him seriously. His time was far behind Jiwoo's qualifying run of 2 hours and 10 minutes. But he had done what many said was impossible. It was luck, Jiwoo said loudly in the dining hall when Hyun entered. The course was easy this year. But something had changed. Some students now nodded to Hyun when he passed. A few even asked questions about Earth and human athletics. Professor Sunho was ecstatic. You see, he said during their training session, it's just as I predicted. Your endurance is your weapon. But I barely qualified, Hyun pointed out. The Aiki real marathon is more than twice as long with harder terrain. Yes, Sunho agreed. Which is why we need to adapt your training. The full marathon has sections designed to challenge every species. For you, the most difficult will be the hot, humid jungle section. Humans cool themselves by sweating, but in high humidity that becomes less effective. For the next week, Hyun focused on this weakness. Jin-hee, the doctor, provided better cooling patches. Tae-hyun, who had become a good friend, created a special drink that helped maintain electrolyte balance. My sister thinks you might actually finish the marathon, Tae-hyun said one day as they worked in the science lab. Not win, of course, but finish. High praise, Hyun said with a small smile. Tae-hyun's 4 hands worked quickly, mixing chemicals. It is, actually. Last year, 12 students qualified, but only 7 finished. The marathon is brutal. 1 week. Before the marathon, Hyun received a message from Director Doyen, summoning him to his office. The director was not alone when Hyun arrived. A tall, official-looking alien in formal clothes stood by the window. This is Representative Kwon from the Galactic Sports Committee, Doyen said. He has some concerns about your participation in the marathon. Kwon stepped forward. Mr. Hyun, your qualification has created quite a stir. Some committee members worry about setting a precedent. No species has ever competed in an event they aren't naturally suited for. I qualified fairly, Hyun said. Indeed, Kwon agreed. But the full marathon is different. The committee fears you may suffer serious injury or worse. Some sections are particularly harsh for a human physiology. What are you saying? Hyun asked, though he knew the answer. Director Doyen spoke. They want you to withdraw from the race. Hyun looked between them. And if I refuse? Then we cannot stop you, Kwon said. But we want our concerns on record, and I must ask, is it worth the risk? To your health? To future human participation if you fail badly? I won't fail, Hyun said. After they left, Doyen sighed heavily. This isn't about prejudice, Hyun. I've reviewed the medical projections. The jungle section alone could cause heat stroke in a human, and that's just one part of the race. I know the risks, Hyun replied, but humans have been taking risks to prove themselves since we first looked up at the stars. I can't stop now. 3 days before the marathon, Hyun was practicing on the North Ridge path when he heard a shout of pain. Following the sound, he found Jiwoo sitting on the ground, holding his leg. What happened? Hyun asked, approaching carefully. Jiwoo scowled. What does it look like? I twisted my ankle on a loose rock. He tried to stand and winced. Go ahead and celebrate. Your biggest competition is injured. Instead of walking away, Hyun knelt and looked at the injury. Can you move it? Of course I can move it, Jiwoo snapped, then grimaced when he tried. Just not comfortably. Hyun thought for a moment. The medical center is 5 kilometers back. You can't walk that far on this ankle. I know that, Jiwoo said angrily. Then I'll help you. Hyun offered his shoulder. Lean on me. Jiwoo stared, in disbelief. Why would you help me? I've done nothing but mock you. Because that's what humans do, Hyun said simply. We help those in need even if they're not our friends. Reluctantly, Jiwoo accepted the help. The walk back was slow and mostly silent, but near the end, Jiwoo spoke quietly. You won't win, you know. Even with my injury, I'll still run, and I'll still beat you. Probably, Hyun agreed. But that's not why I'm running. Then why? Jiwoo asked, genuinely curious. To show what's possible, Hyun said. For humans, yes, but also for everyone who's told they can't do something because of what they are. At the medical center, Jinhee treated Jiwoo's ankle. As Hyun turned to leave, Jiwoo called after him. Hyun. Thank you. It wasn't friendship, but it was something. The night before the marathon, Hyun couldn't sleep. He stood at his window looking at the 3 moons that hung in the alien sky. A knock at his door broke his thoughts. It was Mina, with Taehyun behind her. We brought you something, Mina said, holding out a small package. Inside was a running suit, but unlike the standard academy uniform, this one had special cooling fibers woven through it. Taehyun made it, Mina explained. It should help with temperature regulation in the jungle section. And these, Taehyun added, presenting a pair of shoes. Designed specifically for human, feet and running style. I used scans from your training sessions. Hyun was speechless. I don't know what to say. Many students have been watching you, Mina said. Your determination, your willingness to work harder than anyone. You've earned respect, even if not everyone shows it. As they left, Mina turned back. Tomorrow, run not just for humans. Run for everyone who's been told they don't belong. Alone again, Hyun laid out his gear for the morning. The marathon would start at dawn. 80 kilometers of the hardest terrain the academy could design. He was ready. Dawn broke with all 3 suns rising over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The starting area buzzed with activity. 200 athletes from 30 different species prepared for the galactic marathon. Hyun stood at the starting line, trying to stay calm. He wore the special suit Taehyun had made. Around his wrists and neck were Jinhee's cooling patches. In his pocket was a small device from Professor Sunho that would beep to remind him when to drink his special electrolyte mixture. Director Doyen stood on a platform, his deep voice booming over the crowd. Welcome to the annual Galactic Marathon. 80 kilometers, 4 major terrains, 1 ultimate test of endurance. Hyun looked around at his competition. Most ignored him. Some still smirked. Near the front stood Jiwoo, his ankle wrapped but his stance strong. When their eyes met, Jiwoo gave a small nod, not friendly but respectful. On your marks. Hyun took a deep breath. Get ready. He thought of Earth, of all the humans who didn't believe he could make it this far. Go! The crowd of athletes surged forward. As always, the Avendri shot ahead, with Jiwoo quickly taking the lead despite his injury. The powerful Terrans followed close behind. Hyun settled into his pace, just as he had practiced. Steady, controlled, sustainable. The first section was a dense forest with a soft path winding between giant trees. This was good terrain for Hyun. He kept his pace, watching as the faster athletes disappeared ahead. 10 kilometers passed. The forest gave way to rocky highlands. The terrain became harder, with sharp stones and steep climbs. Some athletes began to slow. Hyun maintained his pace, running just as Sunho had taught him. His legs felt strong, his breathing even. Keep it steady, he whispered to himself. The race is long. 20 kilometers in, they reached the first checkpoint. Attendants offered water and energy supplements. Hyun checked his position on the electronic tracker. He was in 43rd place out of 200. Not impressive, but not last either. As he drank his special mixture, he spotted Professor Sunho watching from behind a barrier. Perfect pace, Sunho called. The desert is next. Remember your training. The desert section stretched for 15 brutal kilometers. Heat rose from the sand in waves. Many athletes struggled here, their bodies not adapted for the dry heat. But humans evolved in hot African savannas. Hyun's body was designed to cool itself through sweat, Kilometer by kilometer, he began to pass others. A Taran stumbling with heat exhaustion. 2 Korvacs supporting each other as they walked instead of ran. By the end of the desert section, the field had thinned dramatically, 40 kilometers in, the halfway point. Hyun checked his position again. He had moved up to 28th place. His legs ached, but he felt strong. His special suit wicked away sweat efficiently. The cooling patches kept his body temperature stable. "You're doing well," said a voice beside him. It was Mina, running at his pace now. "But the jungle is next. Be careful." The jungle was what everyone feared. Hot like the desert, but humid too. The air felt like soup, thick and wet. Breathing became harder. Hyun activated his strongest cooling patches, feeling their chemical chill spread across his skin. This was the section that worried Sunho most. Human cooling relied on sweat evaporating. In high humidity, that system became less effective. Hyun could already feel his temperature rising despite the patches. 50 kilometers passed. Hyun's vision blurred slightly. His heart pounded, but he kept moving. 1 foot in front of the other. Don't stop, don't ever stop. He passed Mina, who had slowed to a walk. She gave him a tired smile. "Go, human," she whispered. "Show them." 60 kilometers. The jungle finally ended, opening to a series of canyons. The air was drier here, and Hyun's body began to cool again. He checked his position, 12th place now. Many top athletes had dropped out, unable to handle the combination of distance and changing conditions. Ahead, he spotted a familiar silver form. Jiwoo was struggling, his injured ankle clearly causing him pain. As Hyun approached, he could see Jiwoo's face twisted in determination. For a moment, Hyun considered slowing down, letting Jiwoo stay ahead. But that would disrespect everything the Avendri stood for. Jiwoo was a champion. He wouldn't want pity. As Hyun pulled alongside, Jiwoo glanced over. "The human," he said between breaths. Still running, Hyun agreed. They ran side by side for almost a kilometer, neither speaking. Then Jiwoo stumbled slightly, his injured ankle giving way for just a moment. Hyun instinctively reached out to steady him. "I don't need help," Jiwoo said sharply. "I know," Hyun replied. "But I respect you too much to let you fall." Jiwoo's expression changed, surprise replacing anger. "You respect me? After how I treated you?" "You're the champion for a reason," Hyun said. "Your speed, your form, they're amazing. I learned a lot watching you." They ran in silence for another minute. Then Jiwoo spoke again. "Your endurance is unlike anything I've seen. Most of us sprint and rest, but you just keep going." "Different species, different strengths," Hyun said. "Go," Jiwoo said suddenly. "My ankle will slow me down, but you can still place well, maybe even medal." Hyun nodded. "Good race, champion." "Good race, human." Hyun increased his pace slightly, moving ahead 70 kilometers. The final stretch approached, a long, flat plain leading back to the academy. Hyun pushed harder now, his human endurance shining as others faltered. He passed one athlete, then another. In the distance, he could see the academy's towers gleaming in the sunlight. The finish line waited. As he entered the stadium for the final lap, Hyun was in 4th place. The stands were packed with students and staff. A murmur spread through the crowd as they realized a human was about to finish the galactic marathon. 3rd place was just ahead, a Terran athlete moving slowly now, his powerful legs finally reaching their limit. Hyun's own legs burned with pain, but he pushed harder. Earth's gravity had made his muscles dense and strong. This was his moment. He passed the Terran on the final curve. The crowd's murmur turned to cheers. Professor Sunho jumped up and down at the edge of the track. Director Doyen stood with his mouth open in shock. The 2 lead runners, both Avendri, had already finished, their natural speed unbeatable over this distance. But 3rd place was within Hyun's grasp. With a final surge of effort, Hyun crossed the finish line. The clock showed his time, 5 hours, 42 minutes, 18 seconds. A new record for non-Avendry athletes. He collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. Medical staff rushed forward, but he waved them away. He wasn't injured, just exhausted. Director Doyen approached, looking down at Hyun with all four eyes wide. Impossible, the director said, but his voice held wonder, not dismissal. You broke the non-Avendry record by 7 minutes. Hyun could only nod, still catching his breath. The crowd surrounded him. Mina and Tae-hyun pushed through, helping him to his feet. Professor Sunho beamed with pride. Even Jin-hee was there, scanning him with medical devices and nodding in approval. Later, at the medal ceremony, Hyun stood on the third-place platform. As the bronze medal was placed around his neck, he looked out at the crowd. Many who had laughed at him now cheered. Those who had doubted now looked with respect. Ji-woo, who had finished 5th despite his injury, approached after the ceremony. He stood tall before Hyun, then did something unexpected. He bowed, a sign of deep respect in Avendry culture. You have taught us all something important today, Ji-woo said. Never judge a species by their appearance. Hyun bowed in return. And you taught me the meaning of true competition. As the sun set that evening, Director Doyen called Hyun to his office once more. But this time, the director's tone was different. I've received 17 applications from humans wanting to join. Next year's class, Doyen said. It seems you've opened a door. Hyun smiled. That was the goal all along. Professor Sunho wants to create a new department studying comparative species athletics. He wants you as his assistant when you graduate. Doyen extended a hand. You've earned your place here, Hyun. Not just as a human, but as an athlete. As Hyun walked back to his room that night, he passed the Academy's Hall of Records. There, being installed on the wall, was a new plaque with his name and achievement. First human to complete the Galactic Marathon. Below it was a quote, "Limitations exist only where we allow them to." Hyun had come to the Academy to prove what humans could do. He had done that, and more. He had shown what was possible when anyone refused to accept the limitations others placed on them. Everyone had laughed at the human, then he broke their record.